Hello out there, James here. I was watching something on my other computer, and I have it on YouTube. And one of the things that I don't know if I can show you. Hold on 1 minute. It's it's talks about the new black media already sold out, and it's on this one guy's channel named is Search for Uru, I believe. Uh, he got a couple guests on there. One of the guests, a couple of guests I'm familiar with. Um, I don't know if you ever, uh, those who, those who might see this called African diaspora channel. Mostly it's African American, some Africans and Caribbean people and African American, and it's ran, it's hosted by a guy named Phil Scott, and he has his own. That's his channel. Plus, he has two other channels, and he talks about local stuff here. He talks about politics in Africa, politics with African Americans, and he promote business and things like that. One of the things that since watching his program, and what they basically is out, it's like kind of like a black media, and you have certain people that are very good. There's a few people I like checking out that even from the from different age ranges of people that I normally check out, and he's one. He had what they call a advice show. It's African diaspora, and he makes a very interesting, like, about what it takes to cause with media, how does it, what you have to go through, how the cost of getting people to hire you, work for you, and things like that. It was very, very interesting. And a couple guys they also have a high channel. And one was a guy, he was a Pan Africanist, and he was saying, well, how come that you poke negativity, knowing, and he was trying to explain to him in his own way that when it comes to YouTube, is about the analytics, and basically whatever the audience want, that's what they give into. And it was very interesting from his perspective. But what I can honestly say about one of the many channels that someone like I feel from a voice show, now I got African diaspora, and channels like that in the black media has really opened up my eyes to what's going on in America, because he has other people like how to take care of your health. He'll bring on someone like this one guy is called Minister of Wellness, and he brings on tell you what foods are not good for you, some foods are not good for you, what to drink, don't smoke, and just to exercise and eat a certain diet. And it really comes out to be very, very useful. I have seen what bring people on there that are business people talk about what can you do to open up a business in Africa, because that's where he wants to one day take his business to, is in Africa, and his platform over there, and he got some people on his platform that's employed in Africa, and for a black man from America to do that, that's really inspiring, and it showed. And the people that's over in the continent of Africa, the gentlemen and a few ladies that tell their stories from different parts of different countries in Africa, what's going on with the local people, with politics and government. No matter so many different countries, from South Africa to Zambia, you see a lot of stuff from Uganda, Congo, places, Nigeria, Ghana, and every country in between that have these problems. With the political stuff going on over there, with the other people coming over to do business in Africa, and it's really, how people get treated over there in certain places in Africa as far as their country. What the women showed that some of the people that left from one of those countries to go over to the Middle East, and it was really a sad situation. One young woman had on African diaspora had that showed that this one rich couple had this African woman babysitting the monkey. I mean, they do some raw stuff, and there's different ethnic groups. Certain ethnic people come with the condescending attitude that when they come over to Africa, they just think that they're just mild and meager. And some people come with the perception that they're poor and they don't know what's going on. And it's not in that Africa, and like I heard some people say on here, they think that Africa is a bunch of poor people running out there in a rural area with no clothes on and around animals. And I see not. And I've seen that ignorance here personally in America. I met a young lady that was from Utopia, and she one of her jobs was at the time that she was a driver, like an Uber driver, and I was an Uber driver. We was working under this one guy that had a couple of limousines, and so that and she would tell me some. One day I had sat down and talked to her. She was a young, thin, attractive lady. I wouldn't mind talking to her at the time, but I was kind of shy. But anyway, long story short is that she was telling me how people could kind of insult her, and there's a lot of Americans. When you say Africa, I don't know why they think that it's one mass continent, but it's so many different languages, there's so many different cultures. But to some Americans that never been out of the country, some people that they never met some people from them, and what they do is they come with the perception that they have of them. When some of these people come from different countries out of Africa, they come with this perception that they poor or they're educated because they speak with a dialect. And then you get some people got this superior complex. And then, some places, people in America, then it's the misconception about stereotyping about African Americans not liking Africans, and Africans not liking Americans. And you might have some people like that here, but overall, if you listen to it long enough, if you don't be careful, you let that stuff creep in your spirit. Been having this hatred for someone that I ain't never been to the continent of Africa, so why would I dislike some people from Africa? And it was just, I see, even though that they might not understand the full understanding what blacks in America go through. Some of them do, and I know some of them have their own mindset, but it's no reason to hate somebody. I think it's a misconception, that there's a miscommunication, that there's not sitting down in the room and really having a heart-to-heart discussion on what we going through right now. And no matter if it's not based on character, it's based, some people, innocent people who are not committing crimes or doing anything wrong, is coming under the death. Look at the one young man that got killed in Dallas. He was from the Caribbean. His parents were from St. Lucia, or St. Croix, Buffalo Gene, and he just got he was a church leader. He was a young man graduating from school, high school, college, and it was a bad misconception. And what the police officer Amber Geiger, it ended up killing her. And he didn't run around with no gangs, or he didn't run around with no unsavory people. In fact, he ran around with mostly people that were Christians, and most of his friends were white. So, but he still got, he still got, he still got killed, and he still, I don't believe his family, his family got somewhat little justice, but it's not about the justice. And I think it's hard for some people to understand is that before people hear your accent from our black immigrants, some of black immigrants don't understand that in America there's some people that do see you of your color, and that's just the way it is. And I think it's the misconception that maybe with some, it might be just because they see the bad images of African Americans, some doing mischievous things. So there's a perception that this is the reason why they are put to death or get in trouble or things like that. And needless to say that I don't think some people have understanding and awareness that they come to America from different parts of Africa and the Caribbean. I don't think they have a full understanding that race, when people see you, they see your appearance. Any other group of people is like that. I mean, you might have a segment of people that really see you as who you are, your character. But overall, most people, there's a certain segment of a people, and America is one of the few places that see your color. And then we start stereotyping other people. And then when we come across someone who had a guy or a woman just had a bad personality, we tend to have this, well, I don't like them, and because they think that they're better than us, and they might be thinking that, what's wrong? I ain't did nothing to them. And so what the African diaspora have opened me up is like, wow, we all in this together, whether we like it or not, because the same things is happening over in the continent of Africa. Certain groups coming over there and taking the resources and really mistreating certain people as bad over there in segments of different countries in Africa. Unfortunately, some of the leaders have sold them out, and the brainwashing that African people have a good nature about them, and I know they want to welcome people because rightfully so. Tourist dollars and everything else. And it's just sad that how some people go over there and abuse them, or some citizens from Africa go work in the Middle East, and you hear about some women get thrown out into the street that are kings, and they get thrown out and get abused because they feel like they enslaved them. And there's some people that still practice when they take some Africans off the continent and other people like Africans, they enslaved them. And I've seen this on the African diaspora, and it was really, really eye-opening. It had me more compassion that it's not just racism in America. It's not just one group of people, even though there's a sector of people who are white that set this thing up. But the other nations are following. The people who have this colonial mindset that these people are disposable. And it's the same mindset that America has towards us. People that look like us, we're just disposable, used for entertainment, used for pleasures, used for whatever reason, just to watch. And then, there are some African Americans that was able to be part at certain percent, that able to be ball players or professionals or whatever, but it's not the magnitude. And so what some of our African counterparts don't understand, and just like maybe some of us don't understand, is that we got something in common. They used to fuel you, the people who are prejudiced and racist. It's saying that they use spiritual and religion to dominate you, because they feel like they come to give you something, like a God. They get a God complex, and they figure you're gonna bow down to them. And unfortunately, it's the same kind of spirit is in our land too. And so that's what caused me not to be so judgmental of some people as African. And we just gotta learn just to see people as they are. Some people of all walks of life. some people that are from my country in America, different places. I mean, there's other black people, just like any other people, look at you, and you ain't did nothing to them. They just, some people just don't like you. They don't vibe with you because they come up with this aura that you're not from where they party next. See, here, I'm glad it kind of, but what the African diaspora and certain black media outlets that's on YouTube have opened up my mind to politics, geopolitics, and things that's going on, that see it from the black man and the black woman's perspective. And even though I listen to other groups of people, individuals are out of groups of people, it makes me the better understanding on really having some deep. I didn't realize that watching people who look like you, how much it affected you from different phases of whatever subject that they talk about, from geopolitics to talk about finances. And before I go to any other people, not that I'm not prejudiced or racist against other people, but it's good to see that I can see some people that look like me, that have the knowledge and the career, they have the skills, and they never not given a chance. So one thing about the platform of Facebook and YouTube and platform like this have got out to other people to interact, to see that you have someone that look like you, that represents you. And I think that's in every other nationality that feels the same way. I mean, no matter what group of nationality of people you see that's around you, it's a good feeling to someone that look like you. And for some cases, some people that speak the same language. Because for some people that come from a different part of the world, some people can't understand what they're talking about, even when they're trying to speak English. And I put it in a perspective like that. So when they see somebody who speak their native language, that looks like them and speak their native language, there's a collaborative, there's a common goal. It's like you know that we struggling with the same thing in America. I believe that's how some people feel, that so they can go into their own language, they don't have to speak English. But when they have to do, and I noticed that being around I've been around different groups of people for a long time, and I know how it seems like the order them to communicate what they want to tell you, they want to express to you, but they know that you don't know their language too well, that you know the land of what you're on. That's America. They're speaking English, and you could be a nice person, but you can't. But it's kind of more like a communication problem. So I can understand why some groups of people stay with their own groups of people, and they feel comfortable in their own people. That's the same thing how it is when you find like-minded people who are black and some who are Africans and Caribbeans who think the same way. It's like, wow, find out, because we're going through the same thing and the same struggles, and the ones who got the eyes open up to see that this thing is bigger. This ain't just something from my neck of the woods or my country or my neighborhood, that that there's a black man and a black woman or child's going through the same thing I'm going through, and I've seen it around the world. It's like, wow, no matter if it's someone, but it was the black media that kind of pointed that out, because they're only going to show you on certain things like on Al Jazeera or someplace like something like Vice, which is good media outlets, but it's something about the black media. When they're going in there, they're showing you in depth on things, and that's how I learned. And one of the other gentlemen I watch sometimes to learn more about politics and got me better understanding about reparation. One of the people I first heard about this was the guy from his name is T. West. He's an older gentleman, and how his program Africa Synergy, and I think that's what he call it now. But he opened my minds to politics, what's going on in the White House, and then to hear from a black man that know his stuff. I mean, this guy you could tell he's very educated because he gives it background where he's from, and it's almost like he's like a prophet when it comes to what's going on with politics, what's going to happen, and even not just from a United States perspective, but from his own community as a black man, but internationally around the world, he knows what's going on with other people in other countries. And it's really enlightening to hear what he's saying, and how one of the things he had his own platform that about the 21 agenda for African Americans getting reparations like other groups of people that's in America to get their reparations, but the black people in America never got their reparations like other black people on the continent. Some have got theirs, but the African Americans here who got their towns destroyed in the early part of the 19th, 20th century never got reparations, and they never got some form of apology, and they never try to do right. And some people in America feel like they're not entitled to do that because they figure they just want to put it as the past. But one of the things that with the black media point out, different individuals, like, okay, yeah, we see that the Holocaust was in the past. We see that the people that was in Nazi, that in Nazi Germany, that kept those people who are of the Jewish faith, and other people, other groups that were of the European descent, that they got their reparation because of the long suffering. For they said it was approximately 4 to 11 years that this happened, that the people of the European Jews and that they suffered and they were murdered and everything, rightfully so. And the trauma that left in the families who were part of that. And then you have people who are like the Native American Indians who also suffer, but they suffer atrocities about the same time when the African slaves and the descendants of the African slaves were going through their thing, and then certain tribes, certain Native American Indian tribes got reparations for what the U.S. government did. Then the U.S. government did this for the Japanese Americans during war. I believe it was World War II. I believe it was World War II, during that Pearl Harbor thing, and how they got reparations for putting people in internment camps. And I just found out recently, it was on an African American person. I forgot whose channel that it was, that there was an internment camp for slaves here, and they were already here, but after the war of the slaves, there was a internment camp in Louisiana that the slaves were held into until they died, and what they were saying was that it was so bad, the horrific conditions that it was, and it was a program that they wanted to be let out, but they kept them as slaves. They didn't let it go back to their plantations. This was the early people descended from our ancestors. Some of our ancestors went through this, and some of the people who were part of our ancestors were in internment camps until they died. And I saw it was a really interesting video about that. I forgot whose channel it was. It was on yesterday. But it's like every time when African Americans were separated and tried to do for themselves, it was showed all the way back into 1817 to 1700 to early 1900s, that African Americans had their own city. They had their own towns. They had their own, during the time. And it was confirmation how they had their own areas, because in areas of the West and South that they didn't want blacks in the restaurant. If they get their food, they had to take their food around. You had to get off the sidewalk. And these were some people who were white that lived in that era, that time, told me that they grew up in parts of the South. I had two good friends. Their parents are white, and it confirmed, I was having a discussion one of my friends' father who was white, and they was confirming how he really didn't understanding about what's this thing with racism. He said, I seen the same thing in the 1960s. There's some white people don't understand. I had to sit down and explain to him where does this come from, and he grew up in a town where just because he was a white man who ran a newspaper company at the time where it was, I think it was in the 60s, I believe it was somewhere in 67, when the government made affirmative action, that he was hiring a lot of blacks. He was told to hire Asians, Lithuanians. He was telling me all this stuff, and he was saying that his boss didn't like him hiring a lot of black people, and he said, "Well, I'm going to do what the law had me to do," and so he had an understanding because the man was over him was racist, and so it was like, wow, and his perspective was, his people from his perspective, that most black people just need, I think it's more about like more jobs, because he see that there was a need in the inner city, and that he believed that part of it is having more jobs that would maybe solve the problem. And I said, and to agree, I said, you're right, but also I mentioned this to him, and I'm learning from the black media that reparations need to be paid, because, and I went to go and explain to him, thanks to someone like African diaspora in Key West, and his channel, is that I was able to explain and properly make the case to have the understanding to how important that this is, and how it would start the healing process among African Americans, because there's a segment of African Americans are still wounded, that and it helped me to basically bridge the gap of understanding. And I understand that why some black people, there's some black people that don't trust white people in general, and there's some black people are not going to have a sit down and honestly rational talk and say, this is the problem, this is what is going on. Yet there's some issues, some interpersonal issue going on in the African American community, but there's something that's been wounded for a long time, since the 18th century, the 19th century, and it need to be healed. And some black people feel, I didn't tell them this, that feel like they should separate from some white people, because it's like, because of the history. And so, but I just told him basically what happened, and I don't know if he understood about gentrification. I said, and I told him what the people who started gentrification did, and why the conditions that you see are in of it. But part of it was the now, what they're doing now, what they did 30, 40 years ago. And I told him people, and he lives over in Upper Arlington, which is like a wealthiest suburb of Columbus. And I'm sitting up there telling him, I said, some people in your community got whiffed on how the land was valued. And so when the property, when a lot of it's politics too, that when they see that the properties are getting bad, and some people start losing houses, they start wanting to, they offer some people money for their house, and then some people who own buildings, they offer them a certain amount of money, because in some cases some landlords didn't want to take care of their money, they didn't want to take care of it, and so they left it over to, they had some other entity come in, buy up, kick all the people who have low income to no income out, and put in these professional people, business people, like they do in every city in America. They do this, and so they do this in every city. And I'm sitting down and telling them this, and I said, this is the reason why. And then you have people who are in poverty are moved out to different areas, and so they're separated, and so they don't really have a voice, and no one's really helping them get more housing, because of limited income and things like that. And it's he said as a basically he said so basically what it's an economic problem. That's one of the problems, the economic. But I didn't go into the other thing. But he had to understand. Well, thanks to me looking at some like Phil Scott from the African diaspora and the brother like T West, I was able to understand to see what is it conveying without a bunch of animosity or anything like that, and help me to better understand and open up my eyes and then see how the record and the videos and document how racism and why some people call it white supremacy. You hear that terminology quite a bit, but it's a system. It's a systematic racism. That's what basically we're talking about. I said yes, it is. It is, and that was gentrification. It's the systematic racism, and it was a really. And we talked about politics. We talked about Trump and Biden and things like that. What's really going on? And it was a very balanced conversation. And thanks to black media, I was able to understand it. Thanks to black media, I was able to go around and have discussion. And I heard an African lady, some lady that was from Africa. I don't know what country she was from, Uganda or Ethiopia, but they was talking. And so I started the conversation. I said, hey, you know about the African diaspora? Yes, I know about African diaspora. I said, yeah. So when he talk about politics in Africa, and I was at the shop because some guys who were from Ethiopia that owned the shop, and they said, wow, one of them said, wow, James, I didn't know you was interested in African politics. I said, yes. I said, that's how I was able to understand, and it opened up a dialogue and discussion. They already liked this guy. Already liked me as a customer anyway, because I always take my vehicle to him. But it was a vehicle to bridge the gap of understanding between someone from America who's black to have that interaction with someone who's from one of the countries in the continent of Africa to understand their issues, to see where they're coming from. And so, thanks to African Diaspora News Channel and different individuals like that have gone over there to report the news, I'm able to understand, because when I come across somebody, I can have an intellectual conversation with them. And but because some people don't do that, some people, and even I had to stay away from the people that are ignorant, who have that kind of mindset, think, all Africans are this and blah blah this and blah blah that, and they go into the stereotype. And I have seen some black people get just as stereotyped as some white people, because it's like, I don't understand their accent and blah. That's all you gotta do, just sit down and listen to it and just be patient and understanding. And that's all you have to do, just sit down, really talk with them. Don't get, belligerent and ignorant with somebody and disrespectful. Don't let them disrespect you either. But I think it's just basically, it's a communication problem. And we're trying to get them to understand that. And I think with some people in certain countries in Africa, they never seen that kind of racism. And they don't really, I don't think they understand it, because they've been, they had to deal with bad politics, with politicians, corruption and things like that, but I don't think they never when they came to America, they didn't understand the magnitude about there's some individuals going to hate you to the point they will kill you. And they don't, and I don't think some of them can grasp that. And they just think that, and I understand they come over because it's a different land. There's a lot of corruption and things going on. The money might be not the value to take care of a family like you do in other parts of the world. But when you come to a westernized nation like America, even though there's some people that are in a small church that's Christians and they're nice, but it could be part, but it don't mean it represents the 90% of the people you're gonna go work for. or go through their neighborhoods, go in their grocery stores. I mean, it's a small fragment of people that could be white. In most cases, it could be some of us who is African American. And so, you have a blessing to see that, and I thank God that when I see what they go in different countries, what's going on over there, why is these different groups of people over there trying to take off the resources and indoctrinate their system into their culture and make they subdue under their culture, and some of their leaders had basically written them down the drain, and it's just like, wow, man. And some of the leaders have really sold them out just for a little gain. It's the same, but that's the same mentality that you got some black Americans here. They've sold some of their people out for a little gain for politics, like with no matter if they're Democrat or Republican or things like that. It's the same kind of spirit. It's like, long as we next to the power, as long as you could put me in the best neighborhood or whatever, we cool. You can put me in the best neighborhood and my kids go to the best education, then we cool. Then of course I don't see no racism. If I had that kind, I don't see no racism. It's so really the African ain't no different than some African Americans, because you got some African Americans got the same mindset as the Africans that they don't mind seeing some of these people fall by the wayside because of conditions. This is the truth. So really, we fight the same thing, But now, and then I seen racism in different parts of Latin America, and who people are darker, and I seen them going through the same stuff. I seen in Brazil that the some white Portuguese people treat black people really bad down there. If it hadn't been for people like the diaspora or whatever, we never know that we never hardly. And it's like, wow, until something blow up, until you go to their country's website. Someone had translated in English from Portuguese, but you see it's the same struggle, the same bull crap, and the same conditions, the same thing in certain parts of Latin America. And then I see over there in like I said, the Middle Eastern countries that, yeah, they got people that speak their language, but the African looking people are always poor and out and arrogant, and they really don't count them as citizens. They just put them out as like they do in India. They put them as the caste system. I know. And I didn't even know that there was some Kenyans that they were Indian. They're Kenyan Indians, pretty much in India. Thanks to the African diaspora, that there's some people that in the Hindu they're Kenyans that are Hindu. But no one's from there. They're not gonna tell you that. Some of the people that come from India, they won't tell you that. Because they don't really go around people like that. They're just another tribe of people, And so it really opened up my eyes, and I see how the way they put it back in the background, and they to themselves. And so I think when some of these people, when they come from different parts of the world like that, they come to the African American, they got people in their own land that looks like us, but they think that, well, they're just the bottom half and stuff like that. See, some people come over with the colonial mindset that they learned from the slave masters, and this is the thing about some people. It's all right if other people get their butt whooped. It's all right if other people get just long it's not my group. And so when mainstream society call them out their name, racially harass them like they do us, then it's like then it's foul. But it should be wrong either way. But most of the time it's not. It's like it literally some people, if they're racist, they think that they're gonna be, well, as long as it's not my group, it's almost like, I think it's almost like some people like, I'm glad that's not my group being racist too. Yeah, they are some, get away from me. But the same people who do that might be another racist person, just and they don't like them either, or they'll have an encounter with them and call them out their name. And no matter if they're from the Middle East or whether they're from Asia or anywhere else, they go through the same thing. But well, yeah, there's that's why I said America's like a totem pole. When people come here, they get to the totem pole effect. It's like we're not like those people, but we're better than those people. It's just because look at the way they live, and look what and the media is the most powerful thing. And I'm glad that you have an African diaspora and different channels on YouTube and Facebook or Twitter, that Black Twitter, because they get their version of what's going on. Because the mainstream is going to tell their version, and they're not going to tell the whole truth. It was like that one situation was down there, and I see even with the black militia, and they took something, they took it out of content, that this black militia was going down to Kentucky, and even though they took the words what the man said that he gonna burn down the town, and so you got these militias trying to be think that they doing good, these white militias trying to think that, well, we're down here to support the police, and they don't need your help. They got the National Guard. If someone jump off down there, they got the National Guard, but they just had to show up because a black militia said that. But what it was he redirected, he was saying, if this case don't be solved, we're gonna burn your wallets. And saying that we're gonna, and that's we can't, and that's exactly what happened. But the media took that. The media, then some people in America took that, and other places took that, and they ran and put some false narratives. So the guy who was the head over the black militia, he was like, hey, no. And when they came to interview him again, he makes sure what he said, and he had an interview what he said, and told him, don't take what I'm saying and direct it to you. Don't take your words out, and because he's gonna confront you with it, and rightfully so. And that's what's not down there to burn that, but it was to make a political stance. But hey, African Americans have a voice, and it's only African Americans, not just by everybody else and their sexuality. It's like this was African American, male and female. But what happened was there was another main group down there. Black Lives Matter wants to make about everything else. They want to make about black lives, but it's about sexuality, and it's about this and about that. No, it's everybody can join. No, it's about this black. They're not killing you because you're gay. They don't care. They don't know if you're a black man who's a gay man. They don't care if you're a black woman if you're a lesbian. They don't care about that. But see, someone distorted this because they put it, but the foundation of it was based around that. But it was black, but disengaged the black male and female and family relationship. And so, even though it looked like that, and people thinking that it is like that, so when they went down there, the black militias, he specifically said, no, we're not part of Black Lives Matter. We're straight men, straight women, and children. We protect the women and the children, and we're men. Now, is there some members that are gay in the group? I don't know. It is in the militia. I don't know, or gay and lesbian, but it clearly, he made it be known we're not, LGBTQ. They have their own separate movement. But what happened was, but it seemed like they would, when they come up, they wanted to take over their movement and take credit for it. and really leave out the victim, and it's basically moving into politics, in which the LGBT community already made victories in different arenas, and which is true. I mean, you can't, the Supreme Court, you can't discriminate against someone who's LGBTQ, transgender, or gay when it comes to housing, hospitalization, banking, business loans, anything. You can't say nothing even in the church. Even if the Bible says something, it can be labeled as hate speech. So, okay, now that we see that this is out of sexuality, and there are some, like other LGBTQ members, there are some black people that are LGBTQ. There are lesbian women, gay men, and transgender, some transitioning from men to women and women to men. We understand that, but it took away from the main thing. But there were kids that were involved that got killed. There were elderly people. Some people were disabled that were not LGBTQ. So therefore, that's why it's different to have the black media that is going to show the whole spectrum. So that's why they're going to tell it. But the mainstream media wants to tell what the main agenda is about. Whatever it is, and whatever it's the immigrants. And then let's get into the immigrants. And then you got some people that just want to make a statement and just want to rebel against the government because they ain't happy with their life. They ain't got nothing else to do. I mean, they're not oppressed, so they come in with their own agenda, and they're not for the people who are a victim of the local enforcement who caused the murder of that individual. That's where your black media come in and say, well, let's get down to the nitty gritty, because they know the mainstream media is going to take something out, put something in, and throw a narrative on it. And this is what even the guy I was talking to you earlier about my friend's father. He used to be an editor. He used to be like one of the people that oversees the operation, because one time he was saying that when he was working at the local paper here, he was saying how it was like the National Guard was around some Boy Scouts, whatever, and some reporter went back and wrote that the National Guard was firing some bullets in it somewhere and hit some young kids. So someone had to call. So he was on the board for the Boy Scouts, and he works for them. So one of his partners had to call up and say, hey, you had to retract that story about the National Guard shooting bullets and hitting innocent kids. And so it was up. But by then, like he was saying, it was already too late. It was out there, and so time they was able to retract that story, it was already gone. People are like, oh my God, what, the National Guard shooting bullets out in there, a place where the Boy Scouts go camping? But it was somebody that took something like that and just as simple as that. So it was, and it come to find out it wasn't true. The National Guard didn't do that. But you see how someone can take something and edit it and put it in their paper. And it's the same thing. That's why the guy who's part of that black militia was saying, I want to state this for record. So those who interviewing me, and he have his phone, so he's recording him interviewing you, so he have it on the record that everything that he said, and let the people hear who is his audience, just in case someone retract and try to say what it was some kind of threat or whatever. And that was very kind of smart, because it's just like I said earlier, people would take something what you say and they use it for their own gain, and kind of find out, they make a story, take it to a lie, and turn to a bigger lie, and turn to a bigger lie, and next thing you know, you tell a lie once, it time it might change time you about to a third or fourth person. That's a fact. So that's one of the reasons why it's very important for black media to tell their own version of it, to get to the nickel and dime, because some mainstream media is biased, and even though they can have a black reporter or whatever, see what they do is that they'll have a black person to be the face when they have to use them for certain events. Like we're gonna send our black reporter in there. But once it's not a hot topic, they might turn around and fire that black reporter, saying he did incompetent work, just to get what they do. That's what they do. What we call the elite, white elite do. That's the same thing that goes in politics. They use black people for their own gain, and that's the same thing what Trump do and Biden do. You want to be technically honest with you, because they both said something against one of the groups of people who are African Americans. In fact, but this one signed a law that he put it in the code that, like the Democrat, that was okay with young men to the counterpart. One is white, one is black. Both sell. This guy's selling cocaine or meth, whatever. This guy is selling crack. The one that sell crack got to do. Now they both got the same offenses of selling drug and distribution drugs, right? But the black defendant has to do longer than the white offendant do. Then they put the white defendant 1-2 years, give him probation, put him in a treatment program. With the black defendant, they just leave him in prison. They don't put him in no treatment program. So this is what the black media is showing. This is hypocrisy. I mean, it don't take away that both men did the wrong thing as far as the crime. But the mainstream media will show the black man who's doing the crack and to vilify him, but they don't want to vilify the one who's doing worse. And it doesn't matter who distributing the drugs. They're both wrong. Should they both get punished? Should the punishment both be equally punished the same? That's what people have been saying. But thanks to your media and your influence of the world, the one who come out of the black community is more deified than the one who's white, who did the same equally thing, brought in fentanyl and meth that caused 5-6 people in a rural to a suburban area to cause death, and they might give them about 5-10 years. This person was on crack, and this is what they did in the 80s and the 90s. So they designed a system for these inner city kids, designed it to get the weapons, and the crime you see now goes back to the 80s, some pretty early back to the 70s. They designed this stuff. They said, well, what is the cause of it? What caused these young men that want to make a choice to go pick up and make that fast buck stand on the corner? And so the cops be the heroes, going to the inner city, so-called trying to clean up the community. So they have so much time, they throw them in jail. Their parents get in poverty, trying to lose their home, trying to bail this person out of jail, this young man. And so their home go up for sale. And so then the mainstream media tell what the property ain't no good now, so we just go back down in there and buy it, and go buy all the property. This is America. This is America. This is what they do, but they're not gonna do that out there in the suburb area, where a rural area where someone sold drugs in a local community out there, a local drug dealer that was in a small house. They're not going to gentrify the area in a small rural town. They're not going to gentrify the area and move them out. Do some people out there lose their house? Yes, they do. But they're not going. But that's not the point, because the longevity point is that we have to streamline this thing Even though these people doing something bad, but we can't, because they're male and they can get out of the prison and get with their girlfriends and wives and make more babies. The black male doesn't have that choice. You take some years off his life so he won't have to procreate his children and he don't have to see his children get raised. Possibly get rehab, and it'll open up his eyes to see that he has to go back and take care of responsibility. They don't want to see that. This is what the black media has to point this out. The hypocrisy in this. And nobody wants to talk about this and you're not going to hear it on mainstream media. This is where the black media has to come in. And they said, well, why do black people want to have, because why they want to be separate? Why they want their own schools? Why they want their own media? Why they want to separate? Because of that. That's why some black people want to separate, because it's going to be a false narrative. When you put around other races of people, it's going to paint the false narrative. And then it's going to be vilified that these people are demonic and demon, and put them in prison, jail, or put them in the grave for eternity, or put them in jail, or put the rest of them in poverty and make them suffer. That's the mindset. It's not about fair. And even though you take two groups of people, one was selling meth and one over here was selling crack, and both did the same thing. Even so far, someone has a violation. Two can have a gun. The black guy can have a gun. He may not use. In most cases, he may not use it. Some cases, the white guy gonna have the gun. He might hate some cop, and he'll start shooting at the cops. And they'll make sure they take him in alive, but the black man have to die. Even though they both had guns and trying to kill the cops. But the mainstream media, they won't paint that. It has to be something tragic, like the Las Vegas, or like something that happened out there in Las Vegas, where it was some guy who was mentally deranged shoot a bunch of people at a country western concert in order to get something like that done, because they don't want when they think about terrorists, they don't want to picture a white male being a terrorist. In that sense, they don't want to picture an Adam Lanza shooting up little kids in Connecticut. They don't want the narrative. They really don't want that narrative. And they don't want to paint the narrative, because imagery is the thing. And this is what the black media, anybody work behind media knows, the imagery is powerful to your audience. That's why, and that's exactly why there's got to be a black media for that, so they can speak on their own behalf. So that's the truth. That's why there has to be someone that be another voice, because these people are not going to tell the whole truth. Or any of these other people or parties other than that, they're not going to be able to go in and tell the whole rightful truth of why these conditions happen. Until they won't tell you the truth why they did that to maturity. Like, for example, the water in Flint, Michigan. They ain't gonna tell you that. Most of the time, most mainstream media, they're not gonna tell you their purpose and intention to really slow down the production of those children development when they get older, so they won't be able to produce. That's why. So they slow down their learning skills. This was on 60 Minutes. But someone purposely done that. This is how much hated poor people, blacks, and anybody who live next to blacks is one of the most hated people. So they dumb them down. They do stuff like this in the medical community. They're not looking out for that. If they put a black doctor in a black face, that's like they could put a black cop. That don't mean nothing. They're gonna deflect and defer. That don't mean nothing. That don't mean nothing, because they don't think black people are not gonna catch on, and we're catching on. Just like with politics, we're catching on. That's why some black people that's why hurry up and vote. We gotta get out and vote. Put this, even though people ain't been dead and they ain't been in the ground. They talk about voting. Breonna Taylor would have been in the ground 46 hours. They talking about voting. George Floyd was shot, was put in the ground. They talk about they want that black vote. We gotta get Trump out. This is what they do. So the black media has to come in and see the bigger cause. But the mainstream media, they come on, see, and then put back in the same guy who put the laws in, put it back in and make the situation much even worse. But the first thing they gotta do is like, we gotta pay the Shakespeare. You're more racist than I am. But they both two white guys, Biden and Trump, sitting on generational wealth and power, and Kamala Harris, she's in it for the power struggle, just to show some flex on some power. That's all what it is. When she gets to office, she don't care about being elected as a first woman of color or whatever like that. In fact, she didn't define as black. In her birth certificate, she defined as white, but she went to a black university to get the accolades. That's all what this about. See, we ain't prejudiced. We select a woman of color. Yeah, for your own agenda. We select one of you. Wait a minute, can't view me being racist. We got one of you in there. Oh, and most black people go, oh yeah, they're not racist. No, racist people got clever. They do, and they deflect, and they find someone on the agenda. Same thing they doing over the continent of Africa. We're not racist. We'll give you all the billions of dollars for you and your family can live for the rest of our life. Give us your people's golden resources. Some African leaders, that's what they did. They turn on their own people. Now they got other people running parts of their country, sold out just like the American blacks in high places do here. It's a power game. And so the next thing you know, these other people who feel like they have another secondary of pressure start implementing, like the Chinese are implementing their ways of business, their way of education, and everything else. Then I heard in certain parts of Africa, they got it. Mandarin, that's the language, and Cantonese, speak Chinese. Meanwhile, they can pay him $1.75 to go and get their wage over there, while they sitting on billions and millions. So some people some leaders have helped them oppress their people. Well, in the politics in America, black people is the same way. When a major shooting here happened, they put a black person in there. That's basically, we're on the people's side. Yeah, anything you want, but in the same time, they're there to play their role too of betrayal and betrayed. They're not in it for them. Just because someone made a good statement, just because they in your skin, don't mean they're your kinfolk. Just because they got the same skin as you, don't mean they have the good intentions in you. That's real talk. But they figure black people be so. See, we elected a black woman. This is what they do, even with the police departments and stuff. But the main people are in control. We don't want to be compared as racist to the world, so because we want the money coming in. So they'll promote somebody. They're not doing it because they're doing it. But meanwhile, the majority of those people who are in the poor communities, where it's black and certain percentage of white, they're going to do what they're going to do, mistreat them and gentrify them. But wait a minute, we got a black police chief. Yeah. The rule of engagement, cause and deflect. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. They do not care. Same way over, we got the same issue, probably the same way in the Caribbean. That's how the Caribbean got taken over. Same thing. So their people out. And their people suffer. Because no one come over there to help bring up to their part. They just come to get rich off the source and enjoy the weather. and get whatever those people been on that island or in that country. That's real talk. Hope you enjoyed this video. Till next time, you guys take care.